Breaking smoking gun just found in Obama wiretapping case. Susan Rice is screwed. It turns out that President Trump really did have a smoking gun on Obama's heinous surveillance crimes for at least a whole month. This is exactly what we have been waiting for. Today, it was revealed that Obama's national security advisor, Susan Rice, was behind the unmasking of Trump team members. From the looks of the information coming out, she was collecting private political info about Trump's allies, including whom the Trump team was meeting with, the views of Trump associates on foreign policy, and plans for the incoming administration. Devin Nunes, I don't know how many names were unmasked in incident. Let's take a listen.
Can we put it up if we have it? There you go. All right, let's listen to what he says.
It is possible that we would receive documents today from the NSA as we requested. The original deadline was on March 15th. But I want to caution that I don't expect the entirety of everything that we need today. So I would hope that by early next week we'll have a better accounting of what the NSA is able to provide us. So I'm telling you that just so you know that you're not going to hang down here because we're not going to have any more information on those today. Lastly, and fourthly, yesterday the counsel for Paul Manafort contacted the committee yesterday to offer the committee the opportunity to interview his client. We thank Mr. Manafort for volunteering and encourage others with knowledge of these issues to voluntarily interview with the committee. And so those are the four things I wanted to alert you of this morning. And so stay tuned for more. Yes,
yes, Congressman, does Paul Manafort's name appear?
Alert you of this morning. And so stay tuned for more. Yes.
Yes, Congressman, does Paul Manafort's name appear in the new files received?
No. The ones that the documents that I viewed this week, no.
Okay, follow up, please. Are you recalling Director Comey because you think he was not forthcoming in his earlier testimony based on the new documents?
It's not. It has nothing to do with the documents that I've seen. I will say that I think that there are just questions that we have for Director Comey and Admiral Rogers, probably that they just couldn't answer in a public setting. But it's necessary to get both of them back down here before we can move on to other interviews. Hold on.
Wait, I want to be clear on this.
Yeah.
You were recalling them, not on the basis of the new documents.
That is correct. Not on the basis of the documents that I have seen and that I'm hoping to get today or over the weekend or first part of next week from NSA and other agencies. We don't know that, but he voluntarily offered to come to the committee. We will work it out. Our lawyers, Republicans and Democrats, will work with his lawyers to see what exactly he wants to do. If he wants to come out in public and have a public hearing, he's more than welcome to do that. If he wants to do it in a closed setting, that's also fine with me.
Last night on Sean Hannity show, you said that one reason why you briefed the president was because he's been taking a lot of heat from Newsweek. What did you mean by that?
I'm stating the obvious. Maybe you can follow me around and ask me more questions today. Yes, sir.
In documents you reviewed, how many names were unmasked?
I don't know that yet. So I'm aware of, just so I can be perfectly clear, so there was additional unmasking that was done in the documents that I read the other day. I don't know who asked for them to be unmasked. I just know that there are more. Now, just so you know, I was aware of the unmasking before I read the documents.
The ship has suggested it might just be one, or that the unmasking might have been done for appropriate reasons.
Look, I think I'm the only one that's seen the documents as far as I know, and I can tell you that we have. I knew about the unmasking before I read the documents, and I'll just leave it at that.
And when you read the documents, did you swear with what you knew about the unmasking before you see the documents?
I did.
Chairman,
Yes.
Chairman, as far as the sources of these documents, can you
We don't, as you know, and I've said this several times, we don't talk about sources at this committee. We want more people to come forward. The good thing is that we have continued to have people come forward voluntarily to this committee, and we want to continue that. And I will tell you that that will not happen if we tell you who our sources are, people to come to the committee.
But I mean, like, just as far as the situation in terms of a whistleblower, or is it someone who wants to be hidden for?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into that. We want people to come forward, and we will protect the identity of those people at all costs.
Are you going to press Adam Schiff directly? Are you going to
I'm sorry.
Adam Schiff on the full extent of what you've seen? He's made it sound like he's been sort of kept in the dark.
Yeah, I was hoping to get the documents today. It doesn't sound like we'll get a full accounting of those, but hopefully they come in either today or over the weekend or earlier in the week.
You mean the ones from the letter?
The ones from the letter that Mr. Schiff and I sent that were due on March 15th.
The ones that your source gave you.
We won't. The letter should cover. The letter actually should encompass everything that I've seen.
Was
Yes.
President Trump's revealed directly, and do you believe that what you have uncovered is validation of the tweets he released a couple weeks ago?
Oh no, I think I've been very clear. There was no. And matter of fact, I've been very clear on this for many weeks now. There was no wiretapping of Trump Tower. That didn't happen. Yes.
Was he surveilled? Was he indirectly
Members of Congress
surveilled?
have suggested on the record that your Wednesday press conference might have been orchestrated by the White House. Can you say categorically, can you deny it?
Yes, I can, because it was exactly as I told you. Were you here on Wednesday?
It was.
Okay, so I came out here and I told you all that I was going to go to the White House. I had talked to the White House. My staff had talked to the White House earlier that day to request a meeting with the president. And I had not talked to the president before that. Yes.
As far as the White House source.
We don't know we won't know that until we actually receive all of the documentation. It's hard to know where the information came from until you get the reports and have time to go through them and see all the sourcing of the documents. I'm not.
We all know that he was wiretapped. In case you were not aware yet, Susan Rice and Hillary Clinton were best buddies who loved sharing secrets with each other. This right here is Watergate big. The discovery was made by the National Security Council while they were doing reviews of unmasking process. They noticed an, quote, unusual pattern, end quote, of results from Rice, and that's when it hit them. She was spying on Trump. Oh, and just wait for this. Less than 1 month ago, Susan Rice went on PBS in front of the nation and said this, quote, I know nothing about this. I was surprised to see reports from Chairman Nunes on that account today, end quote. Such lies. This right here is the reason our country is so damn broke. Political spying, lying to the country, media cover-ups. This is not small, and she needs to be held accountable. And I totally agree. Let's take a listen here to Susan Rice.
We spoke earlier this evening with former Obama White House National Security Advisor Susan Rice, the author of that piece. It was her first interview since leaving the White House. I began by asking about the allegations leveled today by House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes that Trump transition officials, including the president, may have been swept up in surveillance of foreigners at the end of the Obama administration.
I know nothing about this. I was
Sure,
surprised
you know nothing.
to see reports from Chairman Nunes on that count today. I mean, let's back up and recall where we have been. The President of the United States accused his predecessor, President Obama, of wiretapping Trump Tower during the campaign. Nothing of the sort occurred, and heard that confirmed by
Of course
the director
not.
of the FBI,
I'm sorry, I'm
who
over
also
talking
pointed out
over.
that no president, no White House can order the surveillance of another American citizen. That can only come from the Justice Department with the approval of a FISA court.
He knows that.
So today, I really don't know to what Chairman Nunes was referring, but he said that whatever he was referring to was a legal, lawful surveillance, and that it was potentially incidental collection on American citizens. And I think it's important for people to understand what incidental means. That means
we
the
know.
target was either a foreign entity or somebody under criminal investigation, and that the Americans who were talking to those targets may have been picked up.
Well, I wanted to ask you about this because, as you also know, in the last few weeks, the New York Times has reported that in the final days of the Obama administration, individuals went out of their way to spread information throughout the government about what they knew about intelligence, that the Russians had interfered in the election
Again with
last year,
the Russians?
and that there may have been a connection with Trump campaign officials. So that story's now been out there for several weeks. Could there be a connection here?
I'm not aware of any connection. I had read the New York Times story. I must say, Judy, as one of the most senior White House officials and the most senior responsible for national security, I found that report a bit perplexing. I was not aware of any orders given to disseminate that kind of information.
Well,
so I have no idea whether that was the case. But the fact is that the president did request back in December that the intelligence community compile all of the information that it had on what had transpired during the campaign with respect to the Russians involving themselves in the presidential campaign. And that report was provided to the American people in unclassified form and to Congress in classified form in early January.
And was there a concern, though, inside the Obama administration, inside the White House, that the new Trump administration might not follow up on that intelligence that had been gathered?
I don't think that was the concern, because to the extent that there was any need to follow up, it wouldn't be done necessarily by the White House, but by the intelligence community and by the Justice Department if appropriate. I think our interest was, and the president's direction was, let us make sure that we have compiled and put together in one place all the information that we have so that it is there for the new administration, is there for the American people, and there for Congress to utilize as they see fit.
Well, that brings us to the opinion piece that you wrote that appeared today in the Washington Post, Ambassador Rice, in which what you describe as a pattern of false statements from this president could jeopardize the national security of this country. That's a serious charge. What did you mean by that?
Well, let me explain, Judy. I think the American people know that over the last weeks of the administration, it's now been almost exactly 2 months, we've heard a number of striking and actually patently misleading statements from not only the president, but also from his principal spokespersons. And those statements are heard and digested by the rest of the world, whether they are our friends or our adversaries. The Wall Street Journal made a very similar point today on its editorial page. And the point is this. The United States of America is the leading power in the world. Our friends and our adversaries respect us in large measure because they know that we are steady, we are fact-based, we are serious. And when we have the White House of the United States putting out information that everybody can see to be inaccurate, if not deliberately false, it shakes the credibility and the confidence of our allies, and it lends doubt to our adversaries who may miscalculate, and it undermines the confidence of the American people in what comes out of the White House, which is very detrimental in the event we have a national crisis and we need to rally around the flag.
But just to play devil's advocate for a moment, how does anyone else know, though, that this is just not the rocky beginning of a new administration, and that other countries can see through mistakes, whatever you want to call them, statements, and they're looking at the overall picture, and U.S. national security is not really at
Well, Judy, I think if it were one or two such statements and then they were corrected when the facts were plain, that would be one thing. But we've had statements ranging from the allegation that 3 to 5 million illegal immigrants voted in our elections, which has been debunked on a bipartisan
basis. It hasn't been debunked, it's been
Congress,
proven.
to this allegation that we've already discussed, which was quite shocking, that the president's predecessor, President Obama, had illegally wiretapped his office building. during
Yes,
the
through
campaign. And
English
we heard from bipartisan
channels.
leaders of Congress, as well as from the director of the FBI, that there's no information to support that allegation.
Oh,
and
really?
Yet there's been no correction, no apology. And I think the world is not impervious to what happens here in the United States. And on the contrary, they watch it very, very carefully. And they wonder and worry, what does this mean? Can we trust the word of the White House?
Well, in the meantime, different subject. Today, the Trump administration convened a meeting here in Washington of the leaders from 68 countries to talk about the fight against ISIS, the path forward. And among other things, officials of this administration are saying the reason ISIS is still the threat that it is to the world is in part because of the failed policies of the Obama administration.
Well, I think the facts don't bear that out. The strategy that the Trump administration is pursuing at the behest of the very same military leaders who advised the Obama administration is virtually unchanged. The fundamentals of the strategy, which are to work with partners, in the case of Iraq, the Iraqi government, in the case of Syria, with the Syrian Democratic Forces, a mixture of Kurds and Arabs, to take back territory, remains the thrust of our strategy, as it should be.
The last thing I want to ask you about is a decision that was announced, or that appears to have been made by this administration, to shift more authority over military operations to the Pentagon, in the context of criticism that under President Obama, there was too much micromanaging out of the White House about everything that happened that the military did.
Well, I think that criticism is a well-trodden line. I've heard it many times. And I think the fact is this: President Obama took very, very seriously his role as commander-in-chief. Now, you know, when things go wrong, as unfortunately, tragically, they did in Yemen recently, during the first military raid of this administration, or when we're trying to figure out what just happened in Syria with respect to a bombing that caused a number of civilian casualties. Some say it was a mosque, we say it wasn't. It's very important that the commander-in-chief own responsibility for decisions such as that, and is willing to say to the men and women in uniform, that was my choice, and not blame it on others, whether the commanders or people below him.
Former National Security Advisor to President Obama, Susan Rice, thank you very much.
Good to be with you, Judy.
Nothing but lies, believe me. Hey, I've got an idea. Let's get this smoking gun shared everywhere across the internet. That way the media can't hide it anymore. I mean, this is sickening, really, the rhetoric of it's not proven and this and that. I mean, I'm tired of all of this. Let us know what you think in the comments below. And thank you for watching.